And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a dice placement game that's a little bit different than the other dice placement games I've played before. Today we're going to look at Madeira. Now this is from What's Your Game? They did Vinos, a couple of other games that I really like, so we're going to take a look at this one, and in this one you're going to be placing dice, and placing those dice will give you actions. But if you place the right die, and not a pirate die obtained through other methods, you can get double your actions, or two different types of actions, placing a die for a character action, and then later resolving it, paying some extra money, and taking a building action as well. Planning around how to use these dice, which dice you want, what order you'd like to go in, and whether or not you want to take some pirates in order to potentially not have to pay something, but perhaps lose some points later, is all going to be key. So real quick, why don't we take a look at what you're going to get inside of this box? We'll see how the game plays, and then we'll come back here at the end, and I'll sum it all up for you. So here you can see the guild board from Madeira. What we're looking at here is the turn order area. We're looking at dice drafting, and we're looking at scoring tiles over here. On a player's turn at the beginning of a round, they're going to go ahead and they're going to choose one of these sets of dice. Maybe yellow chooses this one here, and they'll place their disc there. When they do so, any of these orange guild members they have, there are guild members you'll get throughout the game, that have been used, will flip back over to their ready side, available to be used again. In addition, they're going to choose one of these scoring tiles, and these will be scored either in rounds 1, 3, or 5, and they're going to choose it to put in their own area, kind of betting on what they'd like to score later in the game. This could be spending money to get victory points, or getting points for each one of your face-up guild members, or something like having a certain variety or number of ships in the markets or in the colonies. It depends on what you're trying to score. So you're going to place your thing, get some dice, flip over the guild members of the appropriate guild, and choose a scoring tile. Maybe they choose this one. When you get to passing, when you no longer want to take actions over on the main board later, you're going to place your disc back onto one of these passing areas, which will determine your turn order for the next round. When you do this, you're either going to get the amount of money printed there, or you're going to get the special action to the side. And this could be placing into a city, or it could be placing into the city guard, or moving one of your ships, whatever the case may be. But note that mostly it'll be dice drafting, scoring opportunities, and then of course passing and determining turn order on this guild board. Now that we're over at the main board and every player's got their dice, we're going to go on to the phase of placing on characters. Now, each of these buildings that are out here in these different regions, 1, 2, and 3, you'll see there's a building in 1, there's a couple of buildings in 3, and a couple of buildings in 2. Each of these buildings will have a character inside of it, so we're going to place on the characters inside of the buildings. These will move around from round to round, and one of the buildings will always be empty depending on which round it is, not having a character, but will have a generic action associated with it. When you want to place into one of these, you're going to have to place a die, and these dice decide to have numbers, either 1, 2, or 3. When you place a die, you need to place it into a region that has the equal or lower number for that region. So I could place this die in here for free. If I didn't want to place this die here, or if I wanted to place this die maybe over in the 3 area, I would have to pay bread equal to the difference between the die number and the region number, so 2 bread to the supply, in order to place this die. So placing lower dice is harder and more limited, will cost you resources. When you place a die, you're also going to go ahead and you're going to place one of your action markers. These markers show that you took an action there with your die. When you do this, it's going to give you the opportunity later to use the building action in addition to the character actions. The actions on these characters differ, but they're all going to vary unless you place different things around the board or get different resources. For example, placing on this guy here is going to let you place 2 of your civilians, or 2 of your guys, I should say, out into different regions of this map. And placing on different regions is going to give you access to different resources, be it grain or sugarcane, grapes, or even wood. So placing these out and having them in a variety of different areas will let you get more resources. Placing on this guy over here, which would cost you some bread, is going to let you go ahead and buy one of these guild members down here, and I showed you those earlier. Buying these will give you a one-time use ability that you can then reflip over if you choose the right guild later. And these could be things like getting 5 money, or harvesting in an area and getting 2 extra harvests, or moving a ship, or getting rid of half of your pirates, to be covered momentarily. Placing on this building down here will let you move 2 of your ships. Building ships will cost you wood, and you'll need wood to maintain them from round to round, or else you'll take pirates, which are going to be bad. But when you build ships, you can place them out onto the board in various different areas. You'll see you can place them out here. When you do so, you're going to need some type of resource to put there to move your ship in, and when you do this, you're going to be having the opportunity to score those later if you have the correct scoring tile. Moving ships into these colonies over here is going to require you pay some amount of wine. When you move in here, you're also going to get some type of benefit. You can either place a guy here or get rid of 3 of your pirates or gain 2 bread on this one. This one will allow you to place one of your citizens or your guys into city watch over here or take 3 victory points. And this one will allow you to place a guy into a city, gain a victory point, or get 5 money. And so you'll want to try and get into these to score points later, but also to get the immediate benefits, paying wine as you do so. Instead, you could build ships over into the markets, and depending on which market you build into, you're going to have to sell out some resources, either grain, sugarcane, or wine. The amount you sell and where you place is going to determine how much money you get, either 3, 6, 9, or 12 for grain, and you can see the varying values for other types of resources here on the board. In addition, this provides you a scoring opportunity later. The more ships you have here, and in different rounds, so for example here, if you have a ship in round 1, it's worth 3, in round 5 it's worth 4, but in the round 3, it's actually worth 6, so depending on which round it is, you may want more ships here. Over here, it's better to be here in round 1, and here, it's best to be here in round 5. So it's all going to depend when and what you're scoring, where you want to leave these ships or move them to in order to get victory points. Placing on this character over here is going to give you the option to move civilians around the city. This is either going to be to move the neutral civilians that are right here, or to move your own colored guys. And when you're moving these, you're going to move them from one city to the other, maybe like this if it's yellow's turn, and they need money, so they're going to move into the money city. There's also a city for bread and a city for wood. After you've done your movement, you're going to go ahead and you're going to get the resources in the cities that are indicated. So for each one of your guys in a city, you're going to get 2 of that resource, and this is printed here. For each one of your guys that are neutral in that city, you're going to get 1, but you must have at least 1 of your own in the city in order to benefit. So in this case, yellow would get 1, 2, 3, 4 money, and they'd put that in their supply. If they had established up a little bit more, they could get 3 bread and 4 money, or if they were in this situation, they could get 3 bread, 4 money, and 2 wood. A quick note that anytime you're supposed to get wood, you must actually have access to wood, and that's going to involve these regions out here. If you're in a region that currently has wood in it, you can harvest the wood that you're supposed to get from there. Alternatively, if you'd placed in the forest, you can always get wood from the supply anytime you're supposed to gain it. And this is also true for buying wood that you might need to get later. You can always buy wood for a certain cost. The more you buy, the more you're going to have to pay. And that goes up, rather fast. In addition, if you ever need bread and you can't access it, you can use the windmill ability over here to move down on this track. This will decrease the number of guys that you feed for free, but will give you bread immediately or even money immediately if you need it. So there's always options to convert one thing to another. You can even convert your wheat or your grain into bread so that you have to feed less people later on, moving up in the windmill accordingly. So, all of these different actions are going to provide you different things you can do, be it buying new guild members, putting new people out onto the fields, even potentially moving ships, or moving your guys around the city. In addition, there's always one empty area here that doesn't have a character. You'll see there's nothing to slide on here. When you place on this or any of the other ones, instead of taking the action, you may harvest. Harvesting is going to let you go and get the resources where your guys are at in each of these different regions. So, for example, if purple were to harvest in this area, they would get a wood. If all of this had cleared off, they would get a grape. And same thing here for blue. If they were to harvest, they would get a grain. And if they had multiple guys out, maybe they had a guy on the wood and the grain, they'd get a wood and a grain accordingly. So, when you use any of these, you may choose instead to take a harvest, and if you use the empty one, you can harvest one region twice to get an extra resource. After everyone has placed all of their dice and or passed whatever happens first, you're going to go through and you're going to resolve all of the building actions next. That means that anybody who's placed a die on an area, a guild die, and has placed one of these is going to have the option to take the building action. Each building will have a different action printed below it, and you're going to resolve them in order, starting with 1 and moving to 5. When you do this, you're going to see that if you have 1 to 2 guys in a region associated with that action, you're going to get 1 result. It'll be 2 bread in this case. If you have 3 or more, you're going to get 5 bread. But you have to pay to take this action. So let's say that 3 dice had been placed on this action board and 1 pirate die had been placed here. You can only have a number of dice equal to the number of players on any action board. So you'll see that there's 4 here. No one else could have placed here in a 4-player game. When we're resolving this building, we're going to roll all of the dice that are here, and we'll get a number, in this case 5, and we'll also roll the pirate die, 1. The cost to use this building in reals, or money, is going to be 10 minus 5, so $5. If you want to take the action printed below, and you have one of your discs here, or one of your action markers here. So yellow in this case, and probably 2 other players, will say blue and purple, have the option of taking this action. They can either pay 5 money, or they can take 2 pirates, 1 plus the number on the pirate die that's here. They can either pay their 5 money, take the bread, or take the pirates, which are potentially negative points at the end of the game. And these are little discs that you'll take to mark that you didn't do something appropriately. So you'll go through that building. The next building then would be you can place 1 of your guys into the city and get a victory point, or place 2 of your guys and get 3 victory points if you have more than 3 guys in Region 2. Then you'd move on to the next building, and you'd see that it's going to let you place guys into the colonies over here, and for each guy you place, you're going to get a victory point. So that's also good. In addition, these guys will generate resources for you at the end of the round, so they're good to have there, and they'll give you victory points for the number of ships you have there when you place them, not just 1 victory point. You'll move on to the next building, and that one's going to let you refresh some of your guilds, so you can flip over 1 or 2 of your guilds based on how many people you have in Region 3. And then the last building here is going to let you place guys into City Hall. So when you go here, you can place guys into City Hall, which will be useful to be taken out later to use these pirate dice, and whoever has the most guys here can get 4 points at the end of a round. After you've gone through and resolved all of the building actions, that means re-rolling all of the dice on here, paying for all of the people who are on there, and of course either taking the action or taking your pirates, you're going to move on to what is kind of a maintenance phase. At this point, whoever has the most people left in the City Watch can remove 1 and get 4 points. In addition, you're going to go ahead and you're going to get resources for each of your guys that are over here in the colonies, and then you're going to have to pay for all of your ships and all of your civilians that are on the board. When you're paying for these, it's going to be 1 wood, I should say, per ship that is out here. And if you can't afford to pay it, you're going to have to take pirates, 1 per one that you can't support. So you're going to get more pirates. And again, at the end of the game, these are worth a lot of negative points overall. So having too many pirates is bad. It's important to note that when you're building ships, you can never remove them, so you're always going to have to pay that wood upkeep. Having access to wood is good. In addition, for each of your guys that you have on the board, you have to pay 1 bread. This is reduced by the position on the windmill, but for each bread you can't pay or get somehow, you're again going to take a pirate, and having pirates is bad. After that, in certain rounds, you're going to score. In rounds 1, 3, and 5, you're going to score 1, 2, or 3 of your scoring tiles that you've accumulated throughout the game, only the ones that you haven't already scored. In rounds 2 and 4, you're actually going to change some of the available resources out in the regions here. So sometimes you'll see that sugarcane will turn to wine, and this is going to happen in round 4. Other times it'll be that the sugarcane is going to turn, or wheat's going to turn to sugarcane, and that's available somewhere out here. Wheat turns into sugarcane. So different resources will be differently available throughout the game. Finally, you're going to go on to the next round, re-rolling all of the dice, drafting dice again, reorganizing where these characters are on the building, and of course continuing the game, until you go through all 5 rounds. Then, at the end of the game, you're going to score some additional points. You're going to convert all of your resources over into money, and then you're going to get 1 point for every 5 money. In addition, you're going to lose points based on where you are in position of pirates. You'll see here. So if you're first in pirates, you're going to lose 16 points. Second in pirates, 8. Third, 4. And fourth, 2. And if you have no pirates, you lose no points. So that's always good. In addition, for each pirate you have over 20, you're going to lose an additional point. I think it's actually 21. You lose an additional point. So having a lot of pirates is a bad idea, but sometimes it's worth it to take pirates in order to not have to convert something else into resources in a different way. Anyhow, whoever best manages to kind of relocate their workers, be in the appropriate places and gather the appropriate resources, move their ships around, and get their people into different cities in order to gain resources, thus being able to score victory points with the appropriately drafted tiles, will be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is Madeira, a worker placement / dice rolling placement game for 2 to 4 players from What's Your Game. And this is one that does dice placement or dice usage in a way that I really enjoy. You can always use your dice in any way you'd want to as long as you have access to bread. So a 1 doesn't necessarily mean that you can't place it in a 3 area as long as you're willing to pay the penalty for doing so. In addition, I really like the fact that there's the option to take a die from another region, but doing so, taking one of those pirate dice, is really not necessarily to your benefit unless you really need to take the character action and don't necessarily need the building action. So there's this careful kind of balance between using your own guild dice in order to get the both character and building action. Sometimes deciding whether you want to avoid paying the extra option to take the building action and take the pirates. Maybe they're not that big of a threat to you, or maybe you've already taken so many you're not really worried about taking a few more. Or taking that pirate die, completely ignoring the building action, which maybe you want to ignore. Maybe you don't want to have to pay or take the pirates, and you only want the character action. So there's that balance there. In addition, taking those guild usage guys, the people that are in the cities that you can use for the one-time game effects, using those at the right time is really super important. Having access to wood is super important. Having access to bread is super important. Getting your guys out in the right area, either your ships into the market or into the colonies in order to score. You kind of have to adjust from round to round based on which one of these scoring tiles you get access to. You won't always have access to the one you want. So it kind of creates a nice tension. You're always planning for the future, but those plans kind of have a wrench thrown in them from time to time when somebody else does the thing you want to do. In addition, and I kind of brushed over it a little bit, but each one of those buildings, or each one of those characters I should say, can really only hold 4 dice. Now that's in a 4-player game, 3 in a 3-player game, 2 in a 2-player game. Now that means if somebody takes a pirate die and places it on there, and then during your turn you don't place on that character / building, and then the next turn, it's full up, there's 4 dice there, you can't take it anymore. And if you don't plan properly, it can really mess you up in your gameplay. There was one game when I needed both access to wood and food, and I got one of the two, but the other one I didn't get, and I took a whole lot of pirates and lost a lot of points at the end of the game. So, lots of strategy, but some also tactical choices to be made in here. Great game that uses dice in a kind of unique way. Check it out. That's Madeira from What's Your Game?
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.